Hello, naririnig po ba ako? Am I audible po? Good afternoon. We're gonna start in a few minutes. Around 4:05. Okay, let's start. Nakikita ba yung screen ko? Hello? Nakikita yung PPT? Masagot na lang sa chat. Okay, thank you, Jay. Okay, so let's start. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to English Day 1. I hope that everyone can participate in our discussion for today. So here are some of my infos about me if you didn't attend my math class. I am Serene Einweiker Vida. You can call me Se, Ein, or Ein. I am an incoming grade 12 ABM student at Ramon Magsaysay Cubao High School and I am 16 years old. I was also a part of the journalism team since I was in elementary school and I am the editor-in-chief for my past two schools. So English is my favorite subject. Okay, so for today's lesson, we will be focusing on parts of the speech, sentence construction, and modifiers. It may seem much pero saglit lang ang lesson natin for today. So first, let's define parts of speech. So every word is a part of speech. The term part of speech refers to the role a word plays in a sentence. And like any workplace or TV show with an ensemble cast, these roles were designed to work together. So join me in learning about the different parts of speech that the words we use every day fall into and how we use them together to communicate ideas clearly. So here's the first part of speech. So noun. A noun is a word that names a person, place, concept, or object. Basically, anything that names a thing is a noun. Whether you're talking about the basketball court, San Francisco, Cleopatra, or self-preservation. Nouns fall into two categories. So common nouns and proper nouns. Common nouns are general names for things like planet and game show. So does anyone have any idea of an example of a common noun? Kindly put your answer in the chat box. Common noun muna tayo. Any examples? Human, bag. Okay, what else? Pencil. Mm-hmm. So those are examples of common nouns. So let's now proceed to proper nouns. So proper nouns are specific names for individual things like Jupiter and Jeopardy. So what now are examples of proper nouns? Yung binigay niyong example for the common nouns, bigyan yun ngayon ng proper noun. An example of a proper noun. Laptop, Asus. Yes, that's correct. Anello for the bag. Acer laptop, okay. Fabric. Okay, so you are all correct. Those are the two types of noun. So now let's proceed to pronouns. So pronouns are the words you substitute for specific nouns when the reader or listener knows which specific noun you're referring to. So you might say, Jennifer was supposed to be here at 8, then follow it with, she's always late. Next time I'll tell her to be here a half hour earlier. So instead of saying Jennifer's name 3 times in a row, you substituted she and her, and your sentences remain grammatically correct. So it's important to know what pronouns someone uses para yun ang magamit natin to substitute sa any given sentences. So for example, ang first sentence ko is, Ayn is our lecturer today. Ano ang pwede niyong idugtong doon using pronouns? With the use of pronouns. Again, ulitin ko ah. Ayn is our lecturer for today. Continue the sentence using pronouns. Okay, so I will be giving an example. So, as I've said earlier, Ayn is our lecturer for today. She is teaching about the parts of speech. Ganon. Okay. Okay, very good. So is the nouns and pronouns clear? The use of nouns and pronouns clear? Okay, so let's proceed. So now let's tackle about adjectives. So adjectives are the words that describe nouns. Think about your favorite movie. How would you describe it to a friend who never seen it? So think about a movie. Ang ilagay niyo sa chat box is the movie and dash, and then how would you describe it? If you were to tell a friend who's never seen it, paano niyo siya ite-describe? And the movie is fantastic. Okay. Any other answers? The movie Moana is interesting. Ayan. So let's use the example that Laika gave. The movie is fantastic. Ano dyan ang adjective? The adjective is fantastic. So, kung ang adjective ay nagde-describe ng noun, ano ang noun sa sentence na the movie is fantastic? Movie. Okay, correct. So, what type of noun is movie? It is a common noun. Okay, good job. So, ayan. You might say the movie was funny, engaging, well written, or suspenseful. When you're describing the movie with these words, you're using adjectives. An adjective can go right before the noun it's describing. I have a black dog. So, ang adjective dyan is black, and the noun is dog. But it doesn't have to. Sometimes, adjectives are at the end of a sentence. So, my dog is black. Gets ba? Okay. So, next, let's have verbs. So, verbs. Go, be amazing. Run as fast as you can. Win the race. Congratulate every participant who put in the work and competed. So some of the words used are verbs. So verbs are words that describe specific actions like running, winning, and being amazing. So not all verbs refer to literal actions though. There are verbs that refer to feelings or states of being, like to love and to be, are known as non-action verbs. So conversely, the verbs that do refer to literal actions are known as action verbs. So can someone give me an example of a non-action verb? Or you can also give an example of an action verb, pero i-indicate yun na action verb siya. Have. So let's give an example of an action verb. Eating. So, ano yung napapansin niyo sa mga action verbs? Haste, non-action. Sprinting, action verb. Okay. Very good. So, huwag tayong malilito. Merong dalawang types of verbs, non-action and action. So, kapag hindi siya nag-express ng action talaga, or hindi gumagalaw, walang movement, it is a non-action verb. Pero kung may literal na ginagawa, it is called an action verb. Okay, let's proceed. So now, adverbs. An adverb is a word that describes an adjective, a verb, or another adverb. So take a look at these examples. So here's the first example. I entered the room quietly. Ano ang dinedescribe ng quietly, ng word na quietly? Look at the sentence. I entered the room quietly. Ano ang dinedescribe ng word na quietly? Okay, entered. Therefore, it is describing a kung enter niya ang ay kung dinedescribe niya ang word na entered, quietly it is describing a verb. Okay. Very good. Okay, another example. A cheetah is always faster than a lion. Always is describing what word? Okay. And what is faster? What part of speech is faster? Okay, adjective. So therefore, the adverb in this sentence, in this example, is describing an adjective. Okay, let's proceed. So now, preposition. Prepositions tell you the relationship between the other words in a sentence. So an example is, I left my bike leaning against the garage. In this sentence, against is the preposition because it tells us where I left my bike. Okay, so next example, she put the pizza in the oven. Ano ang preposition sa sentence na yun? She put the pizza in the oven. What's the preposition? In, okay. So using the word in, using the preposition in, alam natin kung nasa ng pizza. So first example nga, using the preposition against, alam natin kung saan nakalagay ang bike. So preposition shows relation. Remember that. Okay, let's proceed. So now, conjunctions. Conjunctions make it possible to build complex sentences that express multiple ideas. So in this example, I want to say, I like marinara sauce. I like Alfredo sauce. I don't like puttanesca sauce. Each of these three sentences expresses a clear idea. There's nothing wrong with listing your preferences like this, but it is not the most efficient way to do it. Pwede ba siya makompress? Yes or no? Yung previously stated na sentence, is it possible to compress it into one sentence? Yes. And what are we going to use to compress? What part of speech are we going to use to compress? Conjunctions. Okay, very good. So, instead of saying that, let us consider saying, I like marinara sauce and Alfredo sauce, but I don't like puttanesca sauce. Therefore, all the ideas are expressed, pero now, isa na lang siyang sentence. So, the conjunctions link your ideas together para mas efficient siya basahin instead of listing it. Is it clear? Is the use of conjunctions clear? Okay, so let's proceed. So now for the last, articles. So like nouns, articles come in two flavors. So definite articles and an indefinite article. And just like the two types of nouns, the type of article you use depends on how specific you need to be about the thing you're discussing. So a definite article describes one specific noun, like the and this. For example, did you buy the car? So what type of article is used in the sentence, did you buy the car? What type of article? The. Okay. So anong type ng article ang the? Is it a definite or an indefinite article? Okay, definite. Bakit definite? Since it is specifying a certain noun. Okay. So now let's swap the article with an indefinite article. So, did you buy a car? Therefore, it is indefinite. Parang hindi siya specific. Hindi kailangan may specific na thing or object kang pinapertain to. So, do you know the difference between definite and indefinite? Is it clear? Okay. So now, let us discuss about figuring out parts of speech. Para hindi tayo nalilito. So sometimes it's not easy to tell which part of speech a word is. So here are a few easy hacks to quickly figure out what part of speech you're dealing with. So here are some tips para malaman natin kung anong part of speech ang ating figure out. Okay. If it's an adjective plus the end ly, it is an adverb. Take note, ah. If it's an adjective plus the ending ly, it's an adverb. For example, commonly, quickly, since adverbs are, what are adverbs? They describe how something is done. Okay. So next, if you can swap it out for a noun and the sentence still makes sense, it is a pronoun. For example, we played basketball. Steve and I played basketball. So any of the two sentences still makes sense if you replace the word we, with Steve and I. Okay. If it's something you do and you can modify the sentence to include the word do, it is a verb. So for example, I have an umbrella or I do have an umbrella. Therefore, it is a verb. If you can remove the word and the sentence still makes sense, but you lose a detail, the word is most likely an adjective. So example, she drives a red van. She drives a van. Still, the sentence makes sense, pero nawala ang ating detail, which is the color of the van, which is red. Okay, next. If you can remove the word and the sentence doesn't make sense, it's likely a preposition. So for example, I left my notebook on the desk. Kung tatanggalin natin ang preposition, magiging I left my notebook the desk. So, wala na siyang sense. And if you're ever really stumped, just look the word up. Dictionaries typically list the part of speech a word fits in its entry. And if it fits more than one part of speech, both are listed with examples. So, do not hesitate to search it up if mayroon kayong word na hindi nyo maintindihan. So, i-search nyo lang since Google is very accessible for everyone. Pero dapat mas malawak ng ating vocab since hindi naman tayo pwedeng mag-search kapag nag-exam na tayo. Okay. So let's proceed. What happens when a word is two different kinds of speech? Just like Y is sometimes a vowel but sometimes a consonant, there are words that are sometimes one part of speech and other times another. So here are a few examples. So the word work. In the sentence, I went to work. Ano ang gamit sa kanya? What part of speech ang gamit sa work? Work is considered a what? Work is considered as a noun. Okay. So for the next example, I work in the garden. So ano ang gamit naman sa salitang work dito? Is it a preposition? Is it an adverb? It is a verb. Okay. So another example, well. She paints very well. What what part of speech is the word well in this example, in this sentence? She paints very well. Is it an adjective? Okay, it's an adverb. Why? Kasi, ano ang dinedescribe ng word na well dito? Ang kanyang pagpipaint. Therefore, it is an adverb. Okay. So next, he's well liked in his community. Ano ang gamit ng word na well here? What part of speech? This is the word well-liked is an adjective. Okay. Bakit siya adjective? Kasi dinedescribe si he. Dinedescribe ang pronoun, which is he. He is well-liked in his community. Okay. So next, I dropped a penny in the well. So ano ang gamit ng well dito sentence na ito? It is used as noun. Bakit nga ba siya naging noun? Ano nga ba ang ibig sabihin ng well? It is an English translation of balon. You know the wishing well? Ayun, yun ang gamit here. Okay, next example. But, I cooked breakfast and lunch, but Steve cooked dinner. Ano ang gamit ng word na but here? Again, I cooked breakfast and lunch, but Steve cooked dinner. It is used as conjunction, correct. Bakit? Kasi pinaglink niya ang dalawang ideas. So, it is a conjunction. For the next sentence, I brought everything but the pens you asked for. Ano ang gamit sa word na but here? It is a preposition. Okay. Nakaka-catch up ba or masyado ko mabilis? Or tama lang naman? Okay, so let's proceed. And sometimes, words evolve to fit into new parts of speech. So one recent example is the word adult. So before the 2010s, adult was primarily a noun that referred to a fully grown person. It could also be used as an adjective to refer to a specific type of media, like adult contemporary music. But then, at right about the turn of the 2010s, the word adulting, a brand new verb, appeared in the internet lexicon. As a verb, adulting is the act of doing tasks like paying bills and grocery shopping. So now, let's now discuss sentence construction. So at its core, a sentence is a string of words used to express a complete thought. There's a lot of flexibility about what constitutes a sentence, but the central rule is that it must contain both a subject and a verb. And even that rule is bendable for imperative sentences, as you see below. So there are four main types of sentences. Can someone list them? The four types of sentences? Or hindi na siya maalala? If hindi na maalala, we can recap. Do you still remember the four types? Declarative, exclamatory, imperative, and interrogatory. Okay. So now, let's first start with declarative. So declarative is a statement. This is this is a standard sentence that points out a fact. So that dog won't sit. It's an example of a declarative statement. From the word declarative, you are declaring something. Next, interrogative. This is a question. This is a sentence asking a question. For example, why won't that dog sit? So third is exclamatory. So it is an exclamation from the word itself. This is a modified declarative sentence used to add emphasis or show emotion, urgency, or high volume. I've tried everything but that dog still won't sit. Meron na siya ngayong emphasis. Meron na siyang higher volume since we used an exclamation point. Okay. So the fourth is imperative. This is to command. So this is a sentence telling someone or something to do an action. The subject is assumed so you don't need to include it. So ang example dyan is please sit. So do you notice anything different about the types of sentences? Ano ang naiiba sa kanila? Magkakaiba sila ng punctuations, correct? Very good. So you can know what kind of sentence a sentence is by looking at its punctuation. Pero hindi siya laging applicable since there are types na ayan, for example, the imperative and the declarative. Ang main ang keyword lang dyan is kapag imperative, it is stating a command, while declarative, it is stating a statement lang. It's just declaring. Yan. So notice that the end punctuation changes for the sentence types. Declarative sentences use periods, interrogative sentences use question marks, exclamatory sentences use exclamation points, and imperative sentences can either use punctuations or exclamation points. So now let us go on to the sentence rules and structures. So before you break down the sentence structure, we have to discuss an element crucial to forming sentences, the clause. So what is a clause? A clause is a group of words that contains a subject and verb except for some imperative clauses and can be either independent or subordinate. So an independent clause can exist as a complete sentence on its own whereas subordinate or dependent clause cannot. Bakit nga ba hindi? Hindi siya kayang tumayo as a complete sentence. Sometimes, a subordinate clause is missing either a subject or a verb, or sometimes it has both but still isn't grammatically independent. In either case, subordinate clauses must be joined to an independent clause. So subordinate clauses are almost always introduced by special linking words or phrases known as subordinating conjunctions or connectors like while, because, or as long as, plus certain prepositions like before and after. So if you like, you can see our comprehensive list of subordinating conjunctions. So meron dyan sa online isang mahabang listahan ng lists of subordinating conjunctions. So to build sentences, you can use an independent clause by itself or combine it with a subordinating clause, another independent clause, or both. So let's find out about the four sentence structures. So first, the simple sentence structure. This is the basic sentence, a standalone independent clause with a subject and a verb. Note that a simple sentence can contain two subjects or two verbs but not two of each. Okay? So, hindi siya pwede dalawang subjects and dalawang verbs at the same time. So, an example is, King Kong and Godzilla destroyed the city. So, that is an example of the simple sentence structure. Now, there's the complex sentence structure. So, a complex sentence combines an independent clause with one or more subordinate clauses. So, complex sentences always use subordinating conjunctions to connect the clauses. So, in this example, King Kong and Godzilla destroyed the city because they were fighting. So, ang independent clause dyan is, what is the independent clause in the example of King Kong and Godzilla destroyed the city because they were fighting? What's the independent clause? Okay. So the independent clause there is King Kong and Godzilla destroyed the city. Okay. Since andyan na ang ating sentence, andyan na ang ating subjects, and meron na din tayong verbs, ang subjects natin in which is King Kong and Godzilla, and ang verbs is destroy the city, and ang ating subordinate clause in this context is because they were fighting. Okay. Next is the compound sentence structure. A compound sentence combines two independent clauses using a coordinating conjunction like the fanboys. Ito ang tandaan nating word. Fanboys stands for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, or using a semicolon. So, ang fanboys, yun ang coordinating conjunctions natin. It's essentially two simple sentences joined together. So in this example, King Kong didn't want to destroy the city, but Godzilla enjoyed it. So dalawa siyang simple sentences, which is King Kong didn't want to destroy the city and Godzilla enjoyed it. Okay, so now for the compound complex sentence structure. So lastly, a compound complex sentence structure has at least two independent clauses and at least one subordinate clause. So think of it as a compound sentence consisting of one or more complex sentences. So after King Kong mustered all this strength, he threw a final punch and Godzilla left. So notice na dalawang ating dependent clause, which is he threw a final punch and Godzilla fell. Ang ating subordinate clause is after King Kong mustered all this strength. So nakakasunod ba? Are the four types of sentence structure clear? Okay, thank you for the response. So now let's hop on to our last lesson, which is modifiers. So what are modifiers? Modifiers, as their name implies, are words that modify. So specifically, they're words that modify their sentences' meanings. How do you specify what somebody looks like? With modifiers. How do you describe how an action is being performed? With a modifier. How do you communicate where, when, or how something happened? You guessed it, with modifiers. So as we mentioned above, modifiers are words that modify their sentences' meanings. So take a look at these two examples. So the first example is, I rode the train. So the next example is, I rode the earliest train to the city. Notice na mas modified na ang second sentences since may inad tayong words. Malalaman na kung how, I know not how, what ang sinakyan mong train. So, I rode the earliest train into the city. Where? Into the city. Nagets ba ang use of modifiers? Okay. So the second sentence is more descriptive because of the modifiers it contains. So fundamentally, modifiers' purpose is to make sentences more descriptive or detailed. They can make a sentence's meaning clearer, make a sentence more specific, or simply make it more engaging. So both of the for the example sentences previously are complete sentences, pero one provides additional details about the train ride. These details, depending on how the sentence fits into a larger conversation, could serve as a foreshadowing clarification, the distinction between this and another statement, or a means to hook the listener's attention. So we can use modifiers para mas engaging ang ating statement. So a few examples of single words that may be used as modifiers are first, yellow, outdoor, flying. Then modifier phrases, which can be adverbial or adjectival phrases, are phrases like beneath the car, somewhat slow, without care. So sometimes clauses act as modifiers. So full clause, pwede siya maging modifier. So these two are generally either adverbial or adjectival and can look like when the sun rises, or who wore gray jeans, or with excitement in her eyes. So either a single word, phrases, or even clause that can be used as modifiers. So how are modifiers structured? So typically, modifiers are placed right beside the noun they're modifying. Usually, this means right before or after the noun. So for example, my calico cat is always by my side. The girl ordered a pizza without sauce. So it gives more details about the noun. In the first statement, in the first sentence, ano ang noun natin? My calico cat. And ang modifier natin is always by my side since it gives more information about the cat. So for the second sentence, the girls ordered a pizza. Yan ang ating simple sentence na. Pwede na siya. It can stand on its own. Pero, if we add the modifier without sauce, we're giving another detail into the statement para mas naging clear siya sa ating audience. This is also true when they're modifying a verb or active. So he bought a bright blue van. So we can simply say he bought a van. Pero in this sentence, we stated na he bought a bright blue van, which gives it more information about the van. And next, I told the students to listen carefully to the lecture. Pwede naman na siyang sentence na I told the students to listen to the lecture. Pero, if we modify the word listen, we can use the word carefully para alam kung how they can listen to the lecture. So when the modifier isn't in this position, it can make the sentence confusing for a reader or listener. Which brings us to our next topic, which is squinting and dangling modifiers. So one type of misplaced modifier is known as a dangling modifier. So a dangling modifier is a modifier that doesn't modify any specific word in a sentence. So here are a few examples. After reading the book, the movie was great. Before leaving, a squirrel crossed the sidewalk. So it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, it doesn't. So you might be able to guess what these sentences are communicating, but they feel awkward and choppy. So parang wala siyang right connection. So that's because their modifiers aren't actually modifying any nouns. So clearer ways of writing these sentences are, after reading the book, I thought the movie was great. Okay, so mas clear na siya now. Before leaving, I watched a squirrel cross the sidewalk. So meron na siyang connection. Hindi na siya nakakalito, hindi na siya awkward basahin. Since we use proper modifiers. So dangling modifiers aren't the only type of misplaced modifier. Another type is known as a squinting modifier. So this type of modifier is unclear because it's placed in a way that makes it just as applicable to the word before it as it is to the word following it. So take a look at these examples. So the kids who played at the playground sometimes bought ice cream. So medyo nakakalito siya, 'di ba? Kasi ang sentence structure niya is meron siyang squinting modifier kasi applicable ang modifier ginamit sa word before and word after. So another example is, Emmy hoped when class was over, she could check her phone. So same lang. So how can we write this in a clearer manner? So with these sentences, moving the modifier around fixes any clarity changes. So we can use these sentences instead of those I read earlier. So sometimes the kids who played at the playground bought ice cream. So ang minamodify dito is ang kids. Mas clear na kung sino ang bumibili ng ice cream. So the kids who sometimes played at the playground bought ice cream. So pwede siyang i-move around. Ang words pwede siyang i-move around. So when class was over, Emmy hoped she could check her phone. Or Emmy hoped she could check her phone when class is over. Any of the two works as long as it's not awkward read or ang modifier ay tama, ginamit ng tama, it's good to go. So a reminder, this presentation and worksheets will be posted shortly. So please do not disseminate any copies of our materials without permission. So that is the end of English Day 1. I hope you learned a lot today, and if you did, kindly chat 1 if may naintindihan kayo sa ating lesson for today. Type 1 if meron. If wala, type 2. Okay. So ang quiz neto will be automatically posted later at 6 p.m. and it's gonna be open until August 18, which is next week Thursday. So ang lagi kong deadline is kahit sa anong subject ko na handle ko is 1 week. Okay? So I hope na meron nga kayo na gets and kindly answer the session feedback form which will be posted sa ating G-Class. So, thank you everyone. Have a great day ahead. Goodbye. See you for tomorrow. See you tomorrow.